In The Godfather, Salvatore Tessio was a trusted capo regime and an OG member of the Corleone crime family. But if this is the case, then why did he betray the family? Tessio was one of the closest and most reliable individuals to Vito Corleone, so when he passed the empire over to his son Michael, many thought it was a given he would maintain his loyalty. But as we know, this wasn't the case. Tessio was contacted by Don Barzini to set up a meeting between Michael and him where Michael was to be executed. But Don Vito predicted this future attack, warning Michael about this. The question we will answer is, why was it Tessio who betrayed the family? And also, how did Vito know someone trusted would betray the family? Let's jump into Tessio's rise and, of course, his downfall. Salvatore Tessio was one of Vito's most important associates that helped him grow the Corleone family into the most powerful family at its peak. In part 2, we see a young Vito, Tessio, Clemenza, and Genco rise from low-level gangsters engaging in petty crimes to rising up the neighborhood, becoming the most feared and respected mobsters. Tessio was a confident hoodlum who was known within the neighborhood as being savvy and dangerous. From early on, he had established good connections, including one with a gunsmith, Agostino Coppola. Tessio and Vito first met when Clemenza took Vito to sell a handful of guns. In a deleted scene, the three go to the local gunsmith, Agostino, and sell the guns that Vito once hid for Clemenza. In the book, it is also noted that the three engaged in a scheme where they would hijack trucks of silk dresses and sell them door to door and to an Italian wholesaler. Tessio was much more reserved than Clemenza. He was sharper and more clever, not being nearly as emotional. And after Vito took out Don Fanucci, he became feared and respected, and by extension, so did Tessio. Vito decided to go into the olive oil importing business shortly after taking out Fanucci, and the Corleone empire began to grow. Tessio and Clemenza each had men working for them, and it got to a point where it became cumbersome. Vito decided to make each a capo regime, with Genco being the consigliere. Clemenza and Tessio split off from contacting each other and were to report to Vito. Vito explained this to the more intelligent Tessio, and Tessio understood immediately why. He didn't want Clemenza or Tessio to possibly conspire against Vito. This says a lot about Tessio's intelligence and Vito's awareness of it as well. Tessio also was thought to have played a big role in the Olive Oil War in the 1930s. He was responsible for personally killing Vito's enemy, Don Giuseppe Mariposa, thus ending the war and establishing the Corleone family as the top power. Tessio's stomping grounds were in Brooklyn, where he owned a social club. Many groups within the mafia thought Tessio ran a separate organization from the Corleones, which allowed them to have an element of surprise when needed. But with all the history provided, Tessio still betrayed the Corleone family. Let's find out why. Once Vito had begun to decline in health and grew in age, it was time for him to pass the torch to his youngest son, Michael. I could imagine the mob world was surprised to hear Michael was to be the new Don, given that he was relatively uninvolved in the family business and viewed as a civilian. And some people within the family didn't believe he was fit to be the boss. In this scene, when Michael is appointed the new Don, we see both Tessio and Clemenza unhappy that their territory was being chipped away by Barzini. Michael is telling them to be patient about Barzini, and Tessio tells Mike he's wrong, while Clemenza asks to break off and start his own family. Tessio further says to Vito, "With you gone, me and Pete will come under Barzini's thumb." Vito turns, asking both if they, quote, have faith in his judgment and their loyalty. Clemenza says yes to both, but Tessio just stands there, not saying anything. Had his plan already been in motion with Barzini? This subtle moment in the film could be an indicator as to why it was Tessio, not Clemenza, who betrayed the family. Clemenza was upset and may not have fully believed in Michael, but I believe he would have been prepared to go down with the ship for the family if necessary, rather than switching sides. Whereas Tessio's mental wits worked out that he thought the writing was on the wall for the Corleones. He didn't believe in Michael to be strong, and more importantly, he didn't fear or respect Michael. He saw the Corleones on the decline and the Barzini family on the rise. So as the adage goes, if you can't beat them, join them. On top of this, Tessio definitely would have received a large compensation from Barzini if the plan had worked out. So from Tessio's perspective, it was the best move on the chessboard. An interesting point to note is that throughout the first film, Michael spends a considerable amount of time with Clemenza rather than Tessio. We see Clemenza shake Michael's hand in this deleted scene right after the Don was shot. We also see Clemenza make jokes about Michael talking to Kay on the phone, and give him tips on how to cook meatballs and spaghetti. Furthermore, it was Clemenza that gave Mike instructions for when he was to whack Salazzo and said he was proud of him for being a hero in the war. On the contrary, we don't see Tessio with Michael at all. There's no dialogue between the two until the moment he becomes the Don. You could argue this was a sign of which one of the Caporegimes was going to betray Michael. Tessio was too smart for his own good, but he made one crucial mistake. What he failed to account for was the fact that Vito still possessed an astute mind and understood what would happen. Tessio was in the room when Michael said he would make his father consigliere, meaning his father would be guiding him through this treacherous and uncertain time. Tessio underestimated Vito's shrewdness, thinking that his mental capabilities were also deteriorating along with his physical capabilities, but no. Vito predicted someone of complete trust would betray Michael, and it was Tessio. Vito knew the position his son was in, and after Clemenza and Tessio were complaining to him, the old Don knew what was going to happen. In the life of the Mafia, if your subordinates don't fear you, respect you, or dislike you because of greed or something else, you aren't going to last very long as a boss. For example, the real-life crime boss for the Gambino family, Paul Castellano, was whacked in 1985. The reason for his assassination was deep, involving tapes and that sort, but on top of this, many people didn't like Paul. He was labeled by a few ex-mafiosos as greedy, and after his death, many mobsters weren't upset over his death. This ties back into the situation with Michael becoming the Don, because if the people under you sense weakness, greed, or anything of that sort, they will try to undermine the whole operation and conspire against you. Vito full well understood this, and when the two OG Caporegimes came complaining to him, this was a sign to Vito that one of the two could be the culprit, and as you know, Tessio was the traitor. Tessio approaches Michael at Vito's funeral, telling Mike that he could arrange a meeting with Barzini on his turf, guaranteeing Mike's safety. Michael obliged, and once Tessio and Hagen were about to attend the meeting, Willie Sicci interferes, telling Tessio Mike will come separately. An upset Tessio says that will screw up his arrangements, but then Hagen says he can't go either, and a plethora of men surround him. This is the moment Tessio knows his fate. He tries to ask Tom if he could get him off the hook for old time's sake, but Hagen denies this request, and this is the last we see of Tessio. But this induces another interesting question. How did Tessio die? It is explained in a future book, The Godfather returns that he is executed by a man named Nick Gerazzi, a man Tessio mentored. After he was driven off, Michael's men took him to his social club and whacked Tessio's soldiers involved in this conspiracy. After this, Tessio and his dead soldiers were taken to an abandoned gas station, where he was whacked, marking the end of Salvatore. Tessio proved to be a great Caporegime, helping Don Vito build the most feared and powerful mafia families in the world. Vito relied upon him more than any other man except Luca Brasi, and was the best soldier in the family. But the life of the Mafia is riddled with many snakes and traitors, and the Corleones knew how to weed them out. And that's the video. Did you think it would have been Clemenza or someone else who was going to be the traitor Don Vito predicted? Comment below your thoughts about Tessio's character, and if you saw him as a traitorous figure from the beginning. Thanks for watching, and make sure to subscribe and join the family.